And then what you're going to do is, if you're being attacked on your flank, you're going to have to then move your shields to your flank.
Whoa. What? How do you move your shields?
So,
what's a flank?
Oh, we haven't talked about ships at all, have we?
I have no idea. Like, literally 90% of those words, meaningless.
Maybe we should talk about ships instead.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, this is a video on ships.
Hi everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name is Ensign Krug.
I'm Leonard Nimoy Indigo, and today we are going to be talking about Starfinder ships, specifically what are they, how they work, and what is this? How do you even read the stat block?
Ships. What even are they?
So we're going to be going over the stat block, what each of those things are, and then examples of some of them that we feel that need examples on how they work, versus other ones, like the first one, which is name. You better know that one.
An example of name would be like Krug and Indigo.
So
it's a proper noun that you use to reference something directly.
Yeah, actually, it's true. And we're going to be using two specific examples, and if you want to pull them up, we're going to show them on screen whenever you need. But we're going to be using the BMC Mauler, which is on page 314, and we're also going to be using the ATEC Immortal on page 311. So the first line is going to be the name and the tier. This is the easiest aspect of it. What is the name of the ship and what is the tier? As in, what is the challenge rating when you're fighting against this, or if you're using it, what is your ship's challenge rating in an environment?
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Next are size and frame. The size is a really simple explanation of how large the ship is relative to other ships. The frame is going to give you a base model of the ship. So is this like a cargo ship, or is this like a fighter, or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. An example that we have is the fact that the BMC is a tiny ship, and so it is significantly smaller, and while the Immortal is a huge ship. How speed works is going to be how many hexagons you're going to actually move. While it may be a number like 16 or 5 or whatever, it's actually referring to how many it moves. Versus when you're playing Starfinder, you move 5 feet.
Yeah.
20, you know, like a square.
Each hexagon counts as 1 unit, as opposed to each hexagon counts as... Each square counts as 5 units. You know what I meant.
Well, they can be hexagons while you're playing.
Shut up. Next, we're going to be talking about maneuverability. This is a number that represents how many spaces you have to move forward before you can make a 60-degree turn. Because you're in a ship, you're not walking on your feet. You can't just 180 and go without stopping and adjusting your momentum.
Yeah, and they're going to be described as poor or great or amazing.
Right.
And it's going to be based off of those terms are going to then give you a number that you need to refer to.
Right, which is like, hello?
The next is drift, which is representative of how fast you can go through drift, which is basically light speed in this world.
Gotcha.
How fast travel works is you're actually teleporting into a different dimension and then exiting out of that dimension into a new location somewhere else. And that's your drift speed, and it's referring to how long you have to be in the drift or how far you can travel within the drift to get to the other side.
I travel through the drift too fast, too furious. Next is armor class. If you don't know what armor class is, go watch literally any of our videos. We'll probably happen to mention what armor class is. Seriously though, it's just how difficult it is to hit the ship. The higher the number, the harder it is to hit the ship.
Exactly. Next is target lock, which is referring to non-turret weapons that actually target onto something, and how well or how likely it is going to be to actually hit the object that is attempting to shoot.
So it's just kind of a different kind of AC for targeted. Next is hull points. This is essentially the ship's HP. This isn't a representation of when the ship like detonates from catastrophic failure. If hull points reach 0, that does not mean that everybody in the ship is instantly dead due to a giant explosion. Not how that works.
Yeah, but what it does mean is that that ship is no longer a threat. So, for example...
Effectively unconscious.
Yeah. So the idea would be you would hit a ship, drop it down to 0, and then you can then board the ship.
Right.
Or, you know, drag it back to wherever you need to if you need to, or however you want to deal with it.
Or blow it up.
Or blow it up. I mean, all of those are options, but it's just referring to the fact that, you know, it's at 0 hit points. Because if there's a princess inside of the ship and you need to get to the ship,
get the health points to 0. The princess doesn't die.
Exactly. Next is damage threshold. Damage threshold is basically how much it takes to actually do damage to you.
Yep.
So if you have, say, a damage threshold of 4, if someone does damage to your ship and it is a 3 or lower, that means that doesn't actually hurt your ship.
Yeah.
Now, damage threshold is only usually used for larger ships.
Sure.
Like smaller fighter ships will usually not have damage threshold.
It's just to represent like the sheer mass of the ship, right? And I think it's important to note that damage threshold isn't the same thing as damage reduction. So if you do take 4 damage, you take 4 damage.
Yes.
You're not reducing all incoming damage by 4. Those are 2 separate things.
Yep.
Next is critical threshold. When a ship takes a 1/5 of its health points in damage, one of its systems goes critical.
Now, we'll go into critical systems once we actually get into ship combat, but there are multiple aspects of the ship that can be controlled by the players while in combat. It's not just, oh, the ship is moving. There's actually roles within there that each player gets to take a hold.
Sure.
And each one of them affects differently on what you as the player needs to then worry about.
Right.
Next is your shields. This is basically another level of health points that you're going to have, but your shield is actually going to be taking the damage before your hull is, unless they manage to get around your shields.
I think it's really easy to think of shields as temporary hit points.
Yeah.
Because like reducing them to 0 doesn't do like major damage to your character. It doesn't knock you unconscious, quote unquote. But running out of them is still a huge problem. Next is a ship's attack. This is referencing attacks that aren't from like gimbaled weapons on the ship. They're hard point attacks that attack a specific cone relative to one of the 4 directions of the ship. The front, the back, the left, the right. I don't know the ship terms like the aft, the bow, the stern, and the last one. These attacks are going to be dependent on the direction your ship is facing, which is why the turning radius of your ship is so important. It's going to affect how you aim your attacks, basically.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the rare occasions that people are very, very like adamant about where your ship is physically faced on the hexagon, and it kind of makes it a little bit harder when you're using like digital tabletop stuff where you're just like, cool, my character is just occupying this space, I'm omnipotent and I'm looking in all directions.
In all directions,
but, you know, this is actually cool. This is where your ship is. This is the degrees in which your ship is shooting. So this is the direction.
Yep.
Next is the mounts. That's right. Your ship can then ride another. I'm just kidding. Mounts are what weapons can be placed on your vehicle in what places.
Yep.
It's just a location which you can.
Yeah. So this is going to tell you like how many there are and like where they are.
Yeah, and like the size as well. Okay. Some like different weapons have different size requirements and power requirements, which we haven't gotten into power yet, but we'll get there.
Hey, guess what? Next we're talking about power core. This is going to be how much power the ship has to offer to things like
guns.
Guns that are mounted on your ship. The thing we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's going to have an all-encompassing. Your ship's power core is literally the most important aspect of your ship because it's going to make you able to determine your guns. It's going to also allow you to determine how fast your drift is, what kind of engines you can have, what your shields are like, what kind of computers and security systems and everything on your ship has. It's all going to be based off of the power core.
That hot single point of failure, though. Yummy.
I mean, it's like pulling the power out from your computer.
Yeah.
It's pretty much dead.
Yeah, your hard drive stops, your motherboard stops, your power supply stops, your RAM stops, CPU stops.
Next is drift engine, which is going to basically give you the information that we already talked about, which is your drift speed. This is just what kind of engine you're going to be able to be put in your ship based off of the mounts that are available, as well as how much power is available.
And clearly, if you don't have one, you can't use drift.
Exactly.
Cool. No Tokyo drift for you.
None.
Next is systems. This is going to be all the computer-controlled stuff in the ship, like countermeasures and sensors and stuff like that. This is going to describe which of those things are available on board this ship.
And all of those things we're going to go into more detail. This is just kind of a brief description of all of them.
Yep.
Next is expansion bays. These are basically locations in which can store or hold specific things. So is this a living quarter? Is this going to be a med bay? Like that's just basically its internal ship aspects that are open spaces in which you can put stuff.
Right, and they do things to an extent.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, you can leave an expansion bay open.
Empty.
Yeah, exactly. But you basically, it can only handle a certain size or a certain number.
And some like modules that go inside them have to have a certain size like to fit inside.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Next are the modifiers. These are basically bonuses that the ship is going to give you when you're trying to make certain checks because, you know, something like the ship's AI is compensating for the fact that you suck at using a computer.
Next is min and max crew. This is referring to the minimum number of people that it requires to run the ship versus the maximum number of people in which can be on the ship. And this is important because depending on the size of the ship, it's going to require quite a few people to be able to run it, which is going to be the next thing we talk about, which is crew.
Now to complement the min and max crew, the next thing we're going to talk about is your complement. This is basically the number of people that are currently on your ship.
Now that isn't always going to refer to the number of people actually working on your ship. There is a crew that is on your ship, which is represented by a number and the bonuses in which your crew give you when making different skill checks. Now this is kind of a representation of if you're watching Star Trek, right? We know that Star Trek has a bunch of people on the deck and Scotty. And there's also a whole bunch of people working on the ship. You always see the explosions and people dying and like falling over, but it never shows that you're losing or getting minuses because some of the crew is dead. It's just kind of represented that your crew is just working until everything's done. And so it's just your bonuses, and it's only referring to really big ships.
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter for ships that are like, the max crew size is like a single digit number. Like it has no meaning at that point because those are going to be the players.
Exactly. Or if you're playing solo and you need...
Yeah. It's just
all by myself.
I like how we took two different songs. That was good. Next are your special abilities. These are abilities that are special to your ship. They're things that your ship can do that are unique. You're going to have to read them to figure out what they do because they're special. There's no generic description of them. They're unique. That's what makes them special. Their uniqueness.
And then the last thing on the stat block is how much cheddar it's gonna cost you to actually buy that ship if you wanted to own it.
Is the currency cheese?
Yep.
I didn't think the currency was cheese.
It's because there's yoists in the game.
What, yoist?
The yoist.
Yoist?
The rat people.
Oh. And they're the exclusive ship vendor. And also
Yoski?
And also they like cheese.
They do like cheese because they're rat people. If you did make it through this far into the video, why don't you head down in the comments and let us know whether or not this was helpful to understand how each part works on it. And then really, we're only making this video so that we can better explain how ship combat works, which was actually requested by you guys in the comments. So
we had over 500,000 requests to do a video on ship combat. I think we had 2 actually.
2. I think it was 1 person that commented twice about it.
Maybe that's what it was.
So hey, look how easy it is for you to just ask us, and we'll do it. See how that's how it works. So
we're shills.
Go down there in the
audience.
comments and let us know what you want us to teach you guys about or talk about in the RPG world.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do it down there, you're a horrible person. Bad you. I don't know. While you're down there, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and then head over to Twitter and talk to us. You can talk to me on Twitter at IndigoQT.
And you can talk to me on Twitter at CrewedQT, or you can talk to both of us at all these social media things down here. We'll see you next time.